and northern parts of England, Wales, as well as southern Scotland. And in these places, the odd shower couldn't be ruled out by the afternoon. But for the vast majority, it is, like I say, looking dry with plenty of sunshine, especially towards the south and the far north, and temperatures widely mid to high teens, could even get a 20 Celsius somewhere like Cambridge. Into the evening then, any cloud tends to fizzle out, and so widely clear skies, light winds, temperatures of course falling away. I think in main urban areas 4 to 7 Celsius, but in the countryside we could just dip into the low single figures or something a little lower than that, -1 or -2 degrees. Touch of frost then possible as we start off Wednesday. A few fog patches also possible, eastern Scotland for example, northeast England. They'll quickly disappear so that by 9 or 10 a.m. it's looking widely sunny once again. However, as temperatures rise, well, you wouldn't rule out the odd shower towards the southeast and East Anglia. Temperatures here reaching 17 or 18 Celsius, 14 to 16 degrees for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Wednesday brings widespread sunny skies then, and then into Thursday a bit more cloud in the far north and northwest, but for the vast majority it's staying dry through to the end of the week.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Oh, good morning, everyone. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christys, and Anaya Falarin-Aman on your TV, radio and online here until midday. And it's an eclectic mix of a show today. Of course, we will be paying tribute to the 5-year anniversary of the sad death of PC Keith Palmer, the P&O Ferry latest, and a little bit of light relief. We've got the real-life Willy Wonka coming into the studio. He's bringing props. You're not going to want to miss it.
Well, make sure you get in touch with your views, as usual, GB Views at GB News UK. We'll be getting through those throughout the show. But first, it's the latest news.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB Newsroom. Joe Biden's warning there are clear signs Russia may be preparing to use chemical and biological weapons in Ukraine. The US president says Putin's considering using such weapons because his back's against the wall and that there'll be severe consequences if he does. Joe Biden's also warned Moscow may be preparing cyber attacks in the US and told business leaders to be alert.
He's asserting that we, America, have biological as well as chemical weapons in Europe. Simply not true. I guarantee you. They're also suggesting that Ukraine has biological and chemical weapons in Ukraine. That's a clear sign he's considering using both of those. He's already used chemical weapons in the past, and we should be careful what's about to come.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has paid tribute to the 96-year-old Holocaust survivor killed by Russian shelling in the city of Kharkiv. Boris Romanchenko survived several Nazi concentration camps during the Second World War. He was killed last week when a bomb hit the residential building he lived in. Ukraine's second-largest city has come under heavy fire since the start of Russia's invasion. President Putin says the attacks are necessary to disarm and denazify its neighbour. But Ukraine's Zelensky has questioned his motives.
Please think about how many things he has come through. He survived Buchenwald, Dora Mittelbau, Peenemünde and Bergen-Belsen, the convoys of death created by the Hitlerites, but was killed by a Russian strike. With each day of this war, it becomes more obvious what the denazification means to them.
Volodymyr Zelensky there. Jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has been found guilty of large-scale fraud. Russian prosecutors are looking to move him to a maximum security prison for 13 years for fraud and contempt of court. Charges, he says, are politically motivated. Navalny is one of President Putin's most prominent critics. He's already serving a 2.5-year sentence for parole violations related to charges he says are fabricated. Rescue efforts continue in the search for victims and the flight recorder of a Chinese plane that crashed with 132 people on board. Rescuers in China have been scouring heavily forested slopes after a Boeing 737 crashed in the mountains of southern Guangxi. State media have described the situation as grim and that the possibility of losing everybody on board couldn't be ruled out. A 22-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 19-year-old Sabita Tanwani. She was found dead at student accommodation in Clerkenwell in central London in the early hours of Saturday morning. He's expected to appear at Highbury Corner Magistrates Court later on today. A 17-month-old girl has died after being attacked by a dog that had only been with the family for a week at her home in St Helens. Merseyside police say the child was taken to hospital after the attack in Blackbrook yesterday afternoon, where she died of her injuries. The dog's been put down and will be examined to determine whether or not it's an illegal breed. Energy company Shell is reportedly rethinking its decision to pull out of the controversial Cambo oil field in Scotland. Work on the proposed development off the west coast of Shetland was paused in December after Shell withdrew, saying the investment wouldn't be strong enough. But with the price of oil soaring as Putin continues to invade Ukraine, Shell acknowledges the economic landscape has changed since its original decision. It follows concerns over global energy shortages if the project were to be blocked. People from ethnic minority backgrounds pay £250 a year more than white people for their car insurance, a report has found. Citizens Advice analysed 18,000 car insurance costs across England and Wales last year and discovered what they've described as the shocking trend, regardless of gender, age and income. And the backlog of repairs on local roads plagued with potholes in England and Wales has soared by almost a quarter in 12 months. A survey of councils has warned it would cost more than £12.5 billion to rebuild the roads. Almost 1 in 5 may need fixing in the next 5 years due to their condition. That's nearly 37,000 miles of road. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, it's back to Patrick and Anaya with To The Point.
Good morning, this is To The Point on GB News with me, Anaya Falarin-Inman. I'm Patrick Christys on your TV, radio and online. We've got a great show lined up to kickstart your day, so here's what's on the menu.
Right, well, nearly 3.5 million refugees have fled Ukraine since Russia's invasion. Now, this number looks set to rise as fighting continues. We have a report from Rosie Wright He's at the Hungarian border with Ukraine, where over 300,000 people have now sought refuge.
Yes, and also today marks 5 years since the Westminster Bridge terror attack, an attack on the heart of British democracy. We'll be asking, are we safer now than we were before?
Yeah, and the news agenda's been a bit depressing recently, hasn't it, ladies and gentlemen? So to cheer you all up, OK, we thought that we'd be talking to someone a little bit different. A real-life Willy Wonka. Yes, someone whose job it is to hide prizes, including literal golden tickets, in products. Jeremy Stern will join us live in the studio, and I'm reliably informed he's brought props with him, so goodness only knows what's going to happen there.
Well, looking forward to that. We have all of that coming up and much more across the programme, so make sure you get in touch with your views, as usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. But first, Patrick gives his views on our police force's priorities.
Why is Partygate still going on? It's been announced that the number of suspects under investigation doubled to more than 100, and the police are using valuable time, resources and taxpayers' money to look into a potential COVID breach around a year ago. I get that due process needs to be followed, but there is a war on, and do we really need to destabilise our leadership at this exact moment in time? And it's not like the police have nothing else to do, is it? Last year was a record year for teenage killings in the capital. There were 30 deaths in 2021. One would have thought it was more of an urgent priority to stop the mass slaughter of youths painting the capital's pavements red with blood. Then, of course, there's the ongoing epidemic of violence against women and girls, with sexual offences up 38% in the year to February. At the end of January this year, 21 out of 43 UK police forces had officers under investigation for abuse of sexual powers. And they have a recruitment crisis as well. There's a current drive to appoint around 20,000 new officers, suspiciously close to the number the Tories cut in the first place. But anyway, apparently this isn't going well. A series of whistleblowers have revealed some shocking allegations in relation to the quality, or should I say lack of these new recruits. Apparently many of them are too soft and woke. One trainee supervisor reportedly told the Police Federation some new recruits can't speak to people on the telephone, literally run away from any physical violence, usually leaving their tutor at risk, and one even knocked on the door to speak to a victim but then ran away before it was answered, leaving his tutor scratching his head. Che Donald, the vice-chairman of the Police Federation, said parents even phone up to ask if their son can swerve the night shift because it's his birthday. Figures show that on average 9% of recruits are leaving police forces in England and Wales before they become a police officer. In some forces, the attrition rate is 19%. So instead of devoting existing police officers' time and resources into sifting through he said, she said statements about cheese and wine, perhaps the priority should be training a load of police officers who run towards a crime instead of running away from it. And of course, today of all days, that's more pertinent than ever. Today is the 5-year anniversary of the tragic murder of PC Keith Palmer, along with the other victims, of course, of the Westminster Bridge terrorist Khalid Masood. And our terror threat is currently at substantial. Tobias Ellwood, the MP and veteran who tried to save PC Keith Palmer as he lay bleeding in the street, having tackled a terrorist intent on committing mass slaughter in the Houses of Parliament, warned that terrorists are currently plotting, regrouping and arming. They haven't gone away. I suspect in the round that the British public would rather our police force focus more on terror, ending violent and sexual crime against women and girls, cleaning up its own sexual offences problem, did more to prevent youth deaths on the street and managed to fix its recruitment crisis than pump resources into a report that could destabilise our country's Prime Minister right while there's a war going on. Yeah, I'm not saying, just biff it off, but at the same time, maybe kick it down the road a bit. Do we need this now?
I mean, but if I remember correctly, Patrick, and correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't a big fan of Partygate even before the crisis in Ukraine. So in that sense, you didn't really agree with it even then. So I'm not sure that the crisis in Ukraine necessarily is a reason to not look into it.
I think it is, because if this report comes out and it turns out that it's, say, devastating, and then all of a sudden Boris Johnson goes, and then we have to have a general election or goodness knows what, and there's a war on.
Democracy must continue, regardless of other things that are going on in the world. And also, you do hope that the police can multitask. You can't say, oh, don't look at this because of this. I think hopefully, we should have the resources and capacity to look at multiple different crimes. And if there is crimes that have been committed by members of the government, then I wouldn't really want that to not be public knowledge and public information.
It's the timing of it, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, obviously, in politics, you can never predict what's going to happen. You don't have a crystal ball.
No.
And therefore, in that sense, you have to make do with what events appear as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, look, let me know. GBViews, gbnews.uk, right? Where do you stand on this? Have you actually just had enough of it?
I take your point. I think that it is not necessarily the most important issue right now. And as you said, you don't want to derail the conversation. But I also don't want politicians to think that they can harness conflicts internationally in order to avoid scrutiny and accountability at home. And that's often what we do find, is that, you know, when there are conflicts abroad, they'll jump on that and morally grandstand rather than hold themselves accountable to their own electorate domestically. Yeah, OK. I mean, obviously, not that there's a good side to the war in Ukraine, but from Boris Johnson's perspective, it has been a massive distraction from Partygate, hasn't it? Yes. I'm just surprised, really, that the Met is still pursuing this particular line of approach and expanding it. How could they not? Would it not look politicised if they then decided, actually, we're just not going to pursue this? Do you think that they would be even optically? I don't think that
I'd be inclined to kick it down the road a little bit, to be honest with you. I don't think I'd be necessarily doing it right at this particular moment in time. But anyway, there we go. We'll move on from that. Get those views come flooding in, please. We want to hear from you. GBViews at gbnews.uk. And I believe we're going to have a poll on this very, very shortly. In fact, it's live. There we go. At GBViews. I sound like Jeff Stelling. GBViews on Twitter. Now, you go on that and just say basically whether or not you still care about Partygate. Right, OK. Yes, GB News on Twitter. Sorry, there we go. Now, moving on.
Yes, it's day 27 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and a former Prime Minister of Ukraine has condemned Russia's action. Early on Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel, Alexei Hoksharuk, a former lawyer, politician and Prime Minister who served under Volodymyr Zelensky, spoke about the current situation in Ukraine and the need to keep defending against foreign aggression.
It's impossible to have compromises with someone whose goal is to kill you. It's very simple. One more time, Golda Meir said, we want to live and they don't want us to be alive. This is exactly the same situation between Ukrainians and Putin. Putin wants to have a Russian world. There is no any place in the Russian world for Ukrainians, because Ukrainians understand that this is a fake concept. This is a parallel reality. And it's impossible to agree on Russian world, on our cities, because the only way to agree on this is to be, I don't know, dead, you know. And President Zelensky said that the only way to have a compromise here is to kill all Ukrainians. Look, we understand in Ukraine that Western leaders are scared. And this is a main problem. They are scared of Putin, like Western leaders, it's like half a century ago, was scared by Hitler. The same situation. But the only way to stop him is to show him a power. Because Russians recognize only power. This is the only way to stop him. And every single day of the observation, talks, concerns will just raise a price for all of us. This is a very simple concept. So what do we really need? It's not a matter of economic price. What do we really need is to totally isolate Russia. Trade, finance, economy, all total isolation. Now, you should realize Ukraine is fighting against two countries, Belarus and Russia, at the same time. The 2,000 kilometers border, the biggest country in Europe. It's impossible to cover all this territory and to protect all this territory by Ukrainian resources.
OK, yes, so that's Alexei Hoksharuk there, a former lawyer, politician and, of course, Prime Minister who served under President Volodymyr Zelensky, just outlining his current view on the situation in Ukraine. Now, very shortly, we're going to get more of the humanitarian side on this. Rosie Wright is going to be joining us from the Hungarian border. Clearly, millions and millions of people flooding across various different borders there in Ukraine, Hungary being one of the larger ones. But just quickly before we go to that, I was quite like to see, and so I'm kind of landing this on you a bit, really, but where your red lines are when it comes to Putin. We're hearing now the noises from Joe Biden, anyway, if you can, understand most of them, are that he's convinced more and more now that chemical weapons are in the offing, that there could even be things like nuclear-tipped warheads. Where do you stand on that? Would that be a turning point for you?
I think that we should never really have taken anything off the table. And I think this is quite a controversial position. A lot of people say that we should never say that there would be a no-fly zone. But I really have worried that, you know, when there was the invasion of Crimea, that maybe that led Putin to believe that there would not be any retaliation on the part of the West, and in some senses bolstered him to continue the aggressive, frankly, disgusting and grotesque invasion that is being conducted right now. And I think that from a Western perspective, we should be having everything on the table and also preparing militarily for what may well be a long and incredibly difficult next few years.
Yeah, I've noticed a shift. I don't know about you, but I've noticed, I would say shift's maybe a bit too far, but a little bit of a movement anyway on Twitter, certainly on my Twitter feeds, of people starting to kind of question various things about what's going on in Ukraine, maybe waking up a bit to the fact there is a propaganda war going on both sides.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I've noticed a bit of a tip in the balance in that, and quite a few people, a not insignificant number of people anyway, just kind of coming out and almost saying, well, hang on a minute, this fascination with Zelensky is a bit strange. And I'm quite keen to hear from you if that's where you are, because I can't quite figure out what the angle there is. There goes my mic pack. What the angle quite there is, because is it that you're now pro-Putin, or is it that you're more sceptical of Zelensky? Yeah. I'm not judging. I just want to know what that is.
I think in all of these circumstances, we need to make sure that diversity of opinion is protected, because there is a fog of war and we don't know exactly what's going on. And as you said, there is narrative warfare going on. We need to make sure that there is diversity of opinion. But undoubtedly, Zelensky is an imperfect figure. But the reality is the sovereignty of a nation has been violated in one of the most grotesque ways that we've seen in decades. And I think on that principle, I think there is clear this is wrong.
Yeah. And if you are starting to get a bit sceptical about Zelensky, just tell me what that is, OK? I want to know what areas that is and what these so-called red flags are, because that seems to be a lot what's going around on Twitter. And I've got to be honest with you, I don't necessarily see it myself. So GBviews at gbnews.uk, just make sure you get in touch on that. But we're going to shift away from that kind of military side of it now and discuss the humanitarian aspect, aren't we?
Yes, just broadening out on Ukraine, around 400,000 people are still trapped in the besieged city of Mariupol, which has become a key flashpoint in the conflict, as the UN estimates that nearly 4 million people have fled the country, with over 300,000 people heading to Hungary. GB News reporter Rosie Wright sends us this report from a school in Zaghari, Hungary.
Some families here have been waiting 2 days to get this bus. It's going to Munich. And while they've been waiting, home has been this school. It's for Hungarian kids who are 14 and above, and it's been totally transformed over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, ever since the conflict began. All the students there, you can see some of them outside, have been doing online learning. Instead, the school's transformed 6 of their classrooms and the gymnasium into a place where people can sleep. Classrooms turned into kitchens. It means people here who fled from Ukraine, we're just about a kilometre actually in distance from the border from Ukraine and Hungary, the main train station. These people choosing not to get the train, instead to get the bus to Munich. Many people here never left Ukraine before. Some of them don't speak Hungarian, so they're trying to work out exactly, with the help of volunteers inside, what the next few steps will be. On this bus is 10 people from the same family. They left Mariupol and arrived 2 days ago, absolutely spitting with rage at Putin, completely unable to comprehend what's happened to their country, to their city, and now that as a family, this is the reality, this is the decision they're going to have to make to start a new life in Europe, and they're heading off to Germany.
Yeah, Rosie Wright there, of course. Fascinating report about what's going on there. And, of course, lots of the Ukrainian refugees there, as she rightly said, spitting with rage about Vladimir Putin. Just do get in touch with me just quickly after what I said earlier, what we were talking about earlier there, about has your view changed slightly on the Ukrainian conflict in relation to Zelensky? I'm seeing a lot of this online. I'm not quite sure why. So GBviews at gbnews.uk. But after the break, it is 5 years since Westminster terror attack. Of course, we'll be asking whether or not we're safer now than we were then, and, of course, discussing the tragic passing of PC Keith Palmer. Let us know what you think, but first, here's the weather.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Variable amounts of cloud, particularly during this morning and early afternoon, could bring an odd shower or two to some parts of the UK, but for the vast majority it's looking dry and bright because high pressure sitting to the east keeps, well, weather systems from the west from affecting the UK. We've got a southerly airflow, and with that southerly airflow, areas of medium level cloud have drifted north through the night, and that's how things are as we start off the day. A chill in the air, many places fine and dry, but some cloud drifting north through central and northern parts of England, Wales, as well as southern Scotland. And in these places, the odd shower couldn't be ruled out by the afternoon. But for the vast majority, it is, like I say, looking dry with plenty of sunshine, especially towards the south and the far north, and temperatures widely mid to high teens, could even get a 20 Celsius somewhere like Cambridge. Into the evening then, any cloud tends to fizzle out, and so widely clear skies, light winds, temperatures of course falling away. I think in main urban areas 4 to 7 Celsius, but in the countryside we could just dip into the low single figures or something a little lower than that, -1 or -2 degrees. Touch of frost then possible as we start off Wednesday. A few fog patches also possible, eastern Scotland for example, northeast England. They'll quickly disappear so that by 9 or 10 a.m. it's looking widely sunny once again. However, as temperatures rise, well, you wouldn't rule out the odd shower towards the southeast and East Anglia. Temperatures here reaching 17 or 18 Celsius. 14 to 16 degrees for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Wednesday brings widespread sunny skies then, and then into Thursday a bit more cloud in the far north and northwest, but for the vast majority it's staying dry through to the end of the week.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning all, it's 10:25. This is To The Point with me, Patrick, Christys and Anaya Falarian on GB News Live on your TV, online and radio.
Yes, today marks the 5-year anniversary of the Westminster Bridge terrorist attack that claimed the lives of 5 people. Attacker Khalid Masood mounted the pavement on Westminster Bridge just after 2:40 p.m, hitting pedestrians indiscriminately.
Yeah, Masood then entered the parliamentary estate where PC Keith Palmer was unarmed and he confronted the attacker. The hero policeman was stabbed and sadly killed. Of course, remember those brave scenes as well of Tobias Elwood, don't we, doing everything that he could, along with others, to try to keep PC Keith Palmer alive, but to no avail.
Yes, we're joined now by terror expert and research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Dr. Rakib Ahsan. Thank you, Rakib, for joining us. I mean, as this anniversary is here now, I mean, are we safer on the streets than we were several years ago, or is the terror threat just as bad?
Well, think that the terror threat is something that we can't underestimate in modern day Britain. Recently, the Met Police Assistant Commissioner Matt Jukes revealed that there are 800 terror-related investigations currently underway. 80% of those investigations are Islamist-related. In the prison system, we have 220 prisoners who have been convicted of terror-related offences. And we also have 210 individuals who have been previously convicted of terror-related offences who are being supervised in the community. As Patrick mentioned earlier, the current national terror threat level is substantial, which means that a terror threat is likely. So I would say that combined with the risks which were associated with lockdowns, online radicalisation among socially isolated individuals, I would say that the terror threat is something that needs to be taken very seriously in modern day Britain.
Tobias Ellwood this morning warned that our terrorists have not gone away. In fact, they're plotting, they're scheming and they're arming, they're regrouping, and that he predicts that there will be a rather large-scale terror attack in the West very, very soon. Where are you on that?
Well, I think that it is highly likely that we will continue to see terrorist attacks across much of the Western world, particularly in the UK, where we still continue to have cultural problems when it comes to discussing the terror threat. Even though we've had terrorism-related officials say that the fastest growing terror threat is presented by far-right extremism, the reality of the matter is that the prevailing terror threat in the UK is presented by Islamist extremism. And we do see people looking to restrict much-needed conversations on Islamist extremism, saying that this is a form of anti-Muslim prejudice, when actually I feel that there's a bigotry of low expectations, thinking that ordinary law-abiding anti-Islamist Muslims would be offended by those conversations. And I think that they're doing those communities a fundamental disservice.
On that point, I mean, do you think that we still have a lot to learn when it comes to terrorism, effectively? Because this is not the only one that's happened in the last 10 years. There's been several, but there still seems to be many big questions about, as you mentioned, confronting it and discussing it in an open and honest way.
I agree, Anaya. I think that one problem that I've discussed a great deal that we have in the UK, we continue to have intensely segregated communities, particularly across a string of post-industrial towns in northern England, also inner city areas of London, Birmingham and Manchester. And the reality of the matter is that social integration is very much a political orphan. Neither of our major political parties are particularly interested in placing integration at the heart of their social policy agenda. We also have issues which continue to persist, such as illegal unregistered schools, which peddle extremist narratives. And these are the kind of issues that the UK government really need to confront.
In the wake of the Khalid Massoud Westminster Bridge terror attack, I actually went to his mosque in Birmingham. I actually went round to his flat as well and spoke to some of his flatmates that were there. I mean, they got a tremendous shock when the armed police kicked down their door. They basically just didn't know him, and there's no doubt about that. But I spoke to one of the imams at the mosque, and I almost felt a bit sorry for him, because I wondered if he could see, in fact, I don't think he could see necessarily what was happening right before his eyes, and especially amongst some, potentially anyway, some younger elements of his group, of his flock, as it were. And does more need to be done in mosques, do you think, to combat the spread of radical terrorism, or is that a bit of a lazy thing to say? What do you think?
Well, I think that, Patrick, we need to adopt a multi-agency approach when it comes to combating Islamist extremism, and mosques can play an important role in those processes. I'd also make the point, Patrick, that when it came to Salman Abedi, who was behind the Manchester Arena bombing, Islamist terror-related attack back in 2017, he was banned by one of the mosques in Manchester for his radical views on Islamic State. So I think that what we really need is that we need to have greater coordination, a more joined-up approach, which helps us to confront Islamist extremism at the grassroots level.
And also, Dr. Ricky, I mean, this is a huge question, of course, but what are the drivers, do you think, of Islamist terrorism? I mean, we know that the overwhelming majority of victims of Islamist terrorism are actually Muslims, oftentimes in Muslim-majority countries. But these people, insist that they're doing this in the name of religion. I mean, do you think it's religious? Is it political? Is it ideological? What do you think are the fundamental drivers of this extremist radical ideology?
I think there's a myriad of factors at play, and I certainly believe that social segregation is a very serious driver of Islamist extremism in the UK, especially when it comes to a number of post-industrial towns, inner city areas, which are intensely segregated, socio-residentially segregated. I also feel that as a country, we haven't been robust when it comes to our integration policy. I think that our state-backed model of multiculturalism, which is all too often championed difference over commonality, I do think that has sowed the seeds in terms of the development of Islamist extremism in many parts of the country. So much of this battle, obviously we have to have those counter-terrorism operations, but we need to have a more robust counter-extremism structure which really helps us to confront those divisive narratives which are being peddled in our local communities.
Yeah, and just quickly, I mean, what is your views on Prevent? Because we do know that, particularly on the left, but many students, they've kind of argued that it criminalises and breeds suspicion against some Muslim communities, whereas others have argued that actually it fosters a kind of a direct action approach. I mean, what's your views on the government's counter-extremism Prevent strategy?
Well, I've heard politicians say that Prevent alienates the British Muslim community, but recent surveys showed that the majority of British Muslim respondents had not even heard of Prevent. So I'm not really sure how you can be alienated by a government scheme that you haven't heard of. I feel that one of the key problems with Prevent is that you have institutions involved in Prevent, which in my view are far more comfortable with reporting and managing far-right radicalisation risks, but they may be more reluctant to do so when it comes to Islamist radicalisation risks, even though the ideological composition of the national terror threat is dominated by Islamist extremism. That is not reflected in our counter-extremism and counter-terrorism activities. There's a fundamental mismatch which needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. Dr. Akiba Sandhu, thank you very much. Research Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society and, of course, a leading voice when it comes to counter-terrorism and also the societal issues around it. Thank you again for your time. Now, after the break, we'll be joined in the studio. It's a bit of a shifting tone, this, people, it's fair to say, but we wanted a bit of light relief, OK? We'll be joined in the studio by a man dubbed the real-life Willy Wonka, whose job it is to sneak into factories and warehouses and hide winning golden ticket prizes in products. But before that, we've got to look at this morning's news. I can't wait for that.
Thank you, Patrick. It's 10:34. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Joe Biden's warning there are clear signs Russia may be preparing to use chemical and biological weapons in Ukraine. The US president says Putin's considering using such weapons because his back's against the wall and that there'll be severe consequences if he does. Biden's also warning Moscow may be preparing cyber attacks in the US and told business leaders to be alert. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has paid tribute to a 96-year-old Holocaust survivor killed by Russian shelling in the city of Kharkiv. Boris Romanchenko had survived several Nazi concentration camps during the Second World War. He was killed last week when a bomb hit the residential building he lived in. Ukraine's second-largest city has come under heavy fire since the start of Russia's invasion. A 22-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 19-year-old Sabita Tanwani. She was found dead at student accommodation in Clerkenwell in central London in the early hours of Saturday morning. He's expected to appear at Highbury Corner Magistrates Court later today. A 17-month-old girl has died in St Helens after being attacked by a dog that had only been with the family for a week. Merseyside police say the child was taken to hospital after the attack in Blackbrook yesterday afternoon, where she died of her injuries. The dog's been put down and will be examined to determine whether or not it's an illegal breed. The terrorism threat level in Northern Ireland has been lowered from severe to substantial for the first time in 12 years. The Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis said it shows the significant progress the country's made, but he noted the public should remain vigilant and report any concerns to the police. And the backlog of repairs on local roads with potholes in England and Wales has soared by almost a quarter in just 12 months. A survey of councils has warned it would cost more than £12.5 billion to rebuild the roads. Almost 1 in 5 might need to be fixed in the next 5 years. They say that's nearly 37,000 miles of road. TV online and DAB Plus Radio, this is GB News. It's back to the point with Patrick and Anaya in just a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, everyone. It is 10:39, and it's me, Patrick Christys, and I, Florian Iman, on GB News, live on your telly, online and radio this morning.
Yes, well, a doctor who claims he can help reverse abortions for women who change their minds, says he will continue to offer his controversial treatment after he was cleared by an investigation by the General Medical Council.
Yeah, well, speaking in his first television interview, Dr. Dermot Carney claims to have helped save the lives of 32 babies after prescribing progesterone to women after they regretted, taking an abortion pill. But with the treatment not approved on the NHS, there are, of course, serious questions over its efficacy, and our reporter, Alice Porter, has this report.
For Amrita, it's hard to imagine life without her baby. But there was a time when she didn't want to go through with the pregnancy.
We had barely any money between us, and it just wasn't the right time at all. Not even close. Definitely it was never planned for me and him to have a child.
Because Amrita's pregnancy occurred during the pandemic, 2 abortion pills were able to be sent to her in the post after just 1 telephone consultation.
How quickly after taking the abortion pill did you regret it?
Instantly after taking the pill, I regretted it. I just cried. I called BPAS and I said to him, I regret taking the pill. The first pill, and I was in panic. So I was like, is there anything that I can do? And then she was really calm and she just said, oh, that's absolutely fine, a lot of girls do. She said, if you don't bleed in the next 24 hours, then it should be fine. But I was like, okay, I can't leave it to, it might be fine.
Desperate, Amrita found Dr. Carney online. Him and a colleague have prescribed progesterone to 65 women who want to reverse the abortion process.
If she takes mifepristone,
changes her mind, and then manages to promptly get progesterone rescue treatment, reversal treatment, we can improve that survival rate of a baby from 20-25% up to 50-55%. Why, if they're so convinced or so determined to have an abortion, why 6 hours later, 24 hours later, 48 hours later, why would they change their mind? And I think the answer to that is because of the inadequacy of any sort of supportive or counselling services. We know from all of the women that I counselled they tell me that nobody spoke to them.
But Dr. Carney's treatment is not endorsed by a number of organisations who declined our interview requests, including the Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Healthcare, who say they do not support prescribing progesterone in an attempt to stop a medical abortion, and that abortion reversal treatments are not based on scientific evidence. An abortion provider made a complaint to the GMC against Dr. Carney, accusing him of inappropriately prescribing a treatment with no evidence base and imposing his anti-abortion Catholic views on others. After an investigation, he was cleared of all charges. But whatever your views on abortion, this case raises fundamental questions about the support available to women who change their mind during the abortion process. While debate may continue over the efficacy of taking progesterone to stop abortions, for Amrita, there's no doubt over the difference it's made to her life.
It was only a few months after he gave me the pill that he was banned from giving out the pill. So if I were to have fallen pregnant a few months after, I would not be here with her, most likely.
Alice Porter, GB News.
A very interesting report there, Alice. Thank you so much for that. I mean, it really does highlight, I think, to me, why abortion really is about a woman's right to choose, because there are a lot of moral wrestling that women have to go through when they decide whether or not they want to carry out a pregnancy, which will change their life forever or not. And actually, their bodies are the ones that fundamentally will be impacted. There's different medications and so on that they may or may not have to take. And that's really a decision that I personally think should be with the woman. No doubt they take into account the views of other people involved, but it is a moral dilemma which I think women must have the right to decide for themselves.
Well, there we go, absolutely. And we're just going to go into the inbox pretty quickly now, gbviews at gbnews.uk. We are in a slight about turn from what we've been doing previously. A bit of light relief towards the end of this hour. What we're hoping is very shortly a real-life Willy Wonka is going to kind of wander into the studio. Genuinely, I know, I've not gone mad. But anyway, let's get back into some of these views. Paul's been in touch. Partygate, Bennett. We don't need anything undermining our government and the unity of the West at this time. That's Paul's view, of course. Who could take Boris's place? This is from Philip. During a war situation, our priorities have to change. So there we go. And also, we did ask, didn't we, Ina, about whether or not your views on the Ukraine conflict has changed and the key actors in that, your Zelensky's and your Putin. He says, I'm far from a gung-ho warmonger, but I don't understand the West's response to Putin's invasion. This is Bill. It appears that so long as he doesn't use nuclear weapons, he has carte blanche to decimate a sovereign nation.
I would echo, actually, a lot of those points. Is what I was saying, I think, when you violate the sovereignty of another country, then I think you call into question the concept of sovereignty across the world, and that has massive implications for Europe, freedom and democracy globally. And I think the West need to figure out what their response is going to be to that kind of behaviour going forward, because we also know that China has been eyeing up Taiwan for quite a long time. So that's another question that may be coming down the pipe very soon.
Yeah, I suspect it probably will be, to be honest with you, the way that things are going. Support for Ukraine. I admire Ukrainian presidents and prime minister who are standing by like very brave statesmen. So there you go. That's from Marion. We have had a couple of people who've just been said that they're kind of dislike, I suppose, Zelensky. I don't know if dislike's a bit of a strong word, but Stephen's got in touch. Zelensky's closed down news broadcasters who've been critical of him. That's one red flag. He says he's had government ministers and ours.
Yeah. I think we have to remember that the country is at war. And so a level of unity politically when they're at war, I think there are some arguments to say that that is legitimate to suspend certain democratic exercises when you are a nation at war.
Yeah, Stephen's highlighting, I agree completely, obviously, but Stephen's highlighting that there is a fog of war there. Oh, and he also goes on to praise, as he says, you're by far and away the best news channel. You're actually watchable. So thank you very much, Stephen. That's a massive, massive compliment there that you've paid us, so we do appreciate it. Keep these views coming in, everybody. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We love to hear from you. Loads to get stuck into today. Are you sick and tired of Partygate? Should it be binned now? We've got a Twitter poll on that, @GBNews. On our Twitter, and also, of course, we're asking you your views on where you stand on the Ukraine-Russia situation in terms of the kind of Putin versus Zelensky argument. I'm seeing increasing numbers of people raising some personal concerns about Zelensky, and I want to know why. I want to know what that is for you, if indeed that is you.
Well, now, the news can sometimes be a little depressing. There is a lot of scary stuff going on around the world right now. Prices are rising here in the UK. The cost of living crisis continues to pinch. We could all do with a bit more joy and happiness, can't we, Patrick?
Well, we certainly could. Now, one man who's just sashayed his way in and sat right next to me, who specialises in joy and happiness, is Jeremy Stern. Jeremy has been dubbed the real-life Willy Wonka. There he is. His job is to sneak into factories and warehouses and hide winning tickets for prizes in our food. So if you've won anything, from a fiver to a cruise in the Caribbean, you've probably got Jeremy to thank for it. And Willy Wonka himself joins us now. Thank you very much.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
Absolutely, very good. This is a peak season for us.
Oh,
good. So, I mean, just talk me through it. What do you do? So you break into factories?
Not quite break in. It's all done with the permission of the brand.
Okay.
No, we're effectively promotional bodyguards. So we're the guys that make sure that those prize winners are actually there, available to be won. So when you look on packaging and it says win a holiday, we're the guys that will oversee that. We'll make sure that if it's a competition, we do the judging. If it's a prize draw, we'll pick your name. Well, not your name necessarily.
Okay.
It's all entirely random. And if it's a golden ticket, if it's an instant win, we're the guys that actually put those packets out in the shops.
So what kind of stuff do you give away?
Well, here's an obvious clue. This is a bottle of wine.
Fantastic.
This campaign is completed, so you can have this.
That will stay with me, Jeremy. Thank you very much. Yes.
And actually, this could win you £1,000 because if you pull open the cork, if there's a message on it and a telephone number, you ring the number, you've won £1,000.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So those were distributed around the Christmas time.
So people actually do get these gifts? Because sometimes I do look at them and I think, oh, do they just say it so people buy it? But so they actually do get the gift?
We work with the major brands in the country, and if Promo Veritas is in the terms, then it's absolutely legit.
Wow, that's good to know. So what have you got in your case?
Well, the other big one of the moment...
Oh, something's going off.
Absolutely. Well, we have light-activated sound.
Right.
There's a little man in there.
There's a little man in there, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it gives away a little singing man. Yeah.
Is what the nation is looking for. This is a 50-50 egg. Cadbury cream egg. If you find one of these inside your wrapper, it has a golden ticket.
There we go.
With a unique claim number. You phone that up, we'll send you a cheque for up to £10,000.
Wow.
Have it.
Oh, there we go. So that's actually one of them,
Our job is to oversee the manufacture of these. We apply the golden ticket, and then we randomly distribute them around the country. So myself and my team literally drive everywhere. I've been to the Shetland Islands, the Isle of Wight, the Isle of Man, and everywhere in the mainland to make sure that it's fair and random.
You must get a lot of, fulfilment from this, brightening up people's days to find out randomly.
People. It's a wonderful job.
Yeah.
I mean, the reaction when people find this and they phone us up is terrific. We've had phone calls from people who are desperate for money, and they've won £1,000, and we give it to them straight away on behalf of the promoters, obviously, on behalf of Cadbury on this occasion. So yeah, it's a very happy place to work.
Are you never worried about getting mugged on the way home? You've just revealed now that you've got all your loot here.
Yeah, but we have security systems, so this number is void.
Okay.
I suppose the other great one that we did was this one from a couple of years ago.
He's singing again, whoever that is. The little man in the
Does your pack moo? If it does, you've won £10,000. So this was a pack of Dairy, but we replaced the triangle.
Oh, and it moved.
Oh,
wow. And then you phone the number and you win £10,000 plus £1. Because we obviously have to replace you for the Dairy that you didn't get. That's
do you still get it though if it's broken and it doesn't actually move?
Yes, you would still get it. Yes.
Just asking for a friend. Just wanted to... no, this is great. So, OK, go on. What else? What else we got?
Ice cream cornetto.
Yeah.
These are made in Naples, in Italy, and I spent many weeks in Italy making 700 of these.
Brilliant.
Why? Because they're not real. They're fake. but they were distributed in the shops just as perfectly normal. But if you found one of these, you found this, and inside was the key to a Vespa scooter.
No! That's incredible.
And a voucher to get another Cornetto, because, again, legally, that's what you paid for.
Goodness gracious me! So this is amazing stuff. So, but what would happen if like a child had bought that? They just give it to a responsible adult.
Yeah, it's over 18s, but then they would pass it to the adult.
The nearest one. And once you get that Vespa scooter, look, you know, for me personally, I wouldn't necessarily ride a Vespa scooter. As cool and stylish as they are, I could just sell that, could I, and get the money?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of our best prizes was an Aston Martin that had previously been owned by Wayne Rooney, and it still had his name on the dash, and that was won by somebody in Solihull. And we put her on a training course to drive an Aston Martin because they drive differently. Yeah. But she had it for a month and she sold it.
Wow.
And she's entitled to that. That's her choice. Not everybody wants an Aston Martin sitting on their drive, assuming they've even got a drive.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Certainly after Wayne Rooney's had a go on it. But what else have we got? Anything else? Anything else for us? This is amazing. You can stay all day.
We've done whole chocolate bars.
Oh.
That actually do have a sound chip in them.
Is that what this is singing for me? Yeah. Right, OK, great.
That's what's singing. You're familiar with red noses?
Yes.
Well, a few years ago, we did a gold nose.
Ah.
And if you find one of those, then that won you a trip to Peru.
Goodness me.
Well, how do you become a real-life Willy Wonka?
Got some questions here,
Jeremy. High security. Absolutely, because we're dealing with real money. We've got a team of about 40 based in our office in London. And then nationwide, we have independent auditors that we use. Most of them are magistrates because they've got strong reputations and they're of a certain maturity. And so we have that team. But anything over £5,000, then the senior management team have to do.
I was doing a little bit of reading up on you. You left a very successful job previous to this, didn't you?
Yes.
What was the main motivation behind that, then?
I had a mainstream career in marketing. So I was promotions director for Coca-Cola for promotions across Europe, and then the games company, Sega. But I decided that once you hit a certain age in marketing, there's a bit of a cliff. And so this was an idea that I'd had that I thought, hang on, if I don't do it at a certain age, at the age of 45, I'm not going to do it at all.
So you contacted brands, did you, and presumably you off your own...
Coca-Cola was one of our first clients, fortunately.
Oh, really?
And they were quite supportive. The irony is, actually, we've now flipped and now we work for Pepsi.
Oh, he's a turncoat, absolutely, yes.
But that was 15 years ago when we worked.
It's like going from supporting Liverpool to Everton.
Well, we work all over the world. So these campaigns are run in multiple countries. So the point being is there are millions and millions of prize promotions that are out there at the moment. And if you guys feel that there's trust in the industry, and that's what we try to implant, then you'll buy the products and you'll enter them, and that's good for all of us.
Well, look, I don't know. You know, obviously we didn't bring you here. Jenny didn't bring you here for any free marketing or anything like that. Although, thank you for the bottle of wine.
Indeed.
Just gonna put that one down there, actually, and you can back off, Jeremy, if you think you get that.
Yes.
But no, seriously, if someone does own a firm or whatever and wants to get on board, how do they get in touch with you?
Promoveritas.com.
Right.
That's the name. It means truth in promotions. We've been going it's our 20th year this year. And we're very proud of the reputation and the clients that we've got, and we're happy to help and to talk to anybody in the industry.
Absolutely. And just lastly, you know, the best kind of... Well, actually, two questions. What's the biggest thing you've given away? Was it the Aston Martin?
No, £1 million.
Right.
So, and we're doing it again this year as well for the Heart.
Wow.
Am I allowed to talk about a rival media?
Crack on.
Heart, Make Me a Millionaire.
Well, it's for a good cause. We'll let it slide. Absolutely.
So we're the guys that actually put the notification in the 10 boxes that are randomly sorted and all of that. So that's pretty serious.
OK, well, it sounds massive. I mean, it's just incredible stuff. And just tell us quickly before we let you get going, you know, the most heartwarming thing that you said sometimes people call you up and say
last year, when I personally did a drop in Oxford for the eggs, within half an hour, our office had a phone call. And it turned out it was a 14-year-old boy who'd gone out and bought the egg, and he'd found the winning one, called in the office. We actually went round there, because we were in the area still, and he was donating it to his 6-year-old brother, whose birthday was the next day.
Oh!
I just thought that was just so lovely. So, there are good people out there doing good things.
Oh, amazing. Look, Jeremy, thank you very much. I will
yours.
Yes!
Ooh,
right.
Do we get the egg as well?
Oh, what a day this is. Fantastic. They're going to make me share it with one of our producers now, but they're going to have to get to it first. There we go. But no, Jeremy, thank you very much, my good man. Take care and good luck with everything that you're doing. Bringing a lot of joy to a lot of people. Fantastic stuff. I mean, goodness gracious me, I would love to have found a golden ticket.
Oh, me too.
I would love to. The magic of it all.
Bringing those films to life, those stories.
It is, actually, and it's a tremendous idea. So good luck to you, Jeremy. It sounds Sounds great. Well, goodness me. Right, well, a lot of your views have been coming in, and there we go. Let's have a look at see what some people have been saying about our real-life Willy Wonka. There we go.
Someone said you could pursue an alternative career, Patrick.
Me?
Yes.
In what?
In being the real-life Willy Wonka.
Being the real-life Willy Wonka? I don't know, you'd have to hire me first. There you go. There you are.
That was from Anthony.
Yes, actually, I've just read that, and it actually wasn't as polite as it could have been, that, Anthony, but thank you very much. Your guy made me wonder about this. He says it's fantastic stuff. Maybe you could roll it out right across the country. Well, he has rolled it out right across the country, so make sure that you keep having a look at it. Patrick, hand the wine over to Anaya, you greedy so-and-so, and that's from Ken. No. Right, coming up later on in the show, we've got loads more for you, so keep all your thoughts coming in. Yeah. GBviews at gbnews.uk. And thank you everyone who's been getting in touch so far. Of course, take part in our poll, our Twitter poll, at GBnews, asking whether or not you're over Partygate. But now we've got a bit of weather for you.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Today is simply sunny and warm for the vast majority, but the odd shower is possible in one or two spots. High pressure still to the east of the UK, blocking weather systems from moving in from the Atlantic, maintaining a warm southerly airflow and a dry airflow as well, hence the largely cloud-free skies, but there are areas of cloud drifting north, and those areas of predominantly medium-level cloud could spark the odd shower, perhaps across the Midlands into the afternoon, or northern England, southern Scotland. But really, you'd be unlucky to be caught in a shower, because for the vast majority it's dry and it's sunny and it's warm. 15 to 18 Celsius widely across the UK, 19 or 20 degrees somewhere like London, Cambridge, Manchester or North Wales. Into the evening, and you can see some cloud there drifting north across the Midlands and northern England, and again a chance of a shower out of that cloud, but really that's the exception. For the vast majority it's just a clear night, and under those clear spells, temperatures in towns and cities dipping to 2 to 5 Celsius, and in the countryside just a little below freezing, so a touch of frost first thing, and a few fog patches possible into east and northeast England. Those are the most likely places, but the fog will lift quickly by 9 or 10 a.m. Fog free and sunny once again. One or two showers again possible for the northern Scotland, perhaps eastern England, but for the vast majority it's just another sunny day and feeling warm once again. Temperatures very similar to Tuesday, with highs of 17 to 19 Celsius fairly widely from Scotland down through England and Wales. Now into Wednesday evening, we're going to see the cloud-free skies continue, and that will lead on to another sunny day countrywide on Thursday. I think on Friday there'll be a bit more cloud in the far north and northwest, but sunshine returns on Saturday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Yes, morning everyone. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christys, and Inaya Falarin-Iman on your TV, radio and online. We're with you all the way through until midday with a massive final hour for you, so make sure that you stay with us throughout it.
Yes, make sure you get in touch with your views as usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. But first, it's the news.
Thank you, Inaya. It's 1 minute past 11. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Joe Biden's warning there are clear signs Russia may be preparing to use chemical and biological weapons in Ukraine. The US president says Putin's considering using such weapons because his back's against the wall and that there'll be severe consequences if he does. Joe Biden's also warned Moscow may be preparing cyber attacks in the US and told business leaders to be alert.
I believe that even the people in other countries like Poland, Baltic countries, Moldova, Georgia, they are not safe too, because Russia will not stop on Ukraine. And if we allow him to go, Putin to go further, he will go further. He will go as far as we let him go.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has paid tribute to the 96-year-old Holocaust survivor killed by Russian shelling in the city of Kharkiv. Boris Romanchenko survived several Nazi concentration camps. Apologies, these aren't the correct images. During the Second World War, he was killed last week when a bomb hit the residential building he lived in. Ukraine's second largest city has come under heavy fire since the start of Russia's invasion. President Putin says the attacks are necessary to disarm and denazify its neighbour. But Ukraine's Zelensky has questioned his motives. Jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has been found guilty of large-scale fraud. Russian prosecutors are looking to move him to a maximum security prison for 13 years for fraud and contempt of court. Charges, he says, are politically motivated. Navalny is one of President Putin's most prominent critics. He's already serving a 2.5-year sentence for parole violations related to charges he says are fabricated. Rescue efforts continue in the search for victims, and the flight recorder of a Chinese plane that crashed with 132 people on board. Rescuers in China have been scouring heavily forested slopes after a Boeing 737 crashed in the mountains of southern Guangxi. State media have described the situation as grim and that the possibility of losing everybody on board couldn't be ruled out. A 22-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 19-year-old Sabita Tanwani. She was found dead at student accommodation in Clerkenwell, central London, in the early hours of Saturday morning. He's expected to appear at Highbury Corner Magistrates Court later today. A 17-month-old girl has died after being attacked by a dog that had only been with the family for a week at her home in St Helens. Merseyside police say the child was taken to hospital after the attack in Blackbrook yesterday afternoon, where she died of her injuries. The dog's been put down and will be examined to determine whether or not it's an illegal breed. Energy company Shell is reportedly rethinking its decision to pull out of the controversial Cambo oil field in Scotland. Work on the proposed development off the west coast of Shetland was paused in December after Shell withdrew, saying the investment wouldn't be strong enough. But with the price of oil soaring as Putin continues to invade Ukraine, Shell acknowledges the economic landscape has changed since its original decision. It follows concerns over global energy shortages if the project were to be blocked. And that's all from us here. Now back to Patrick and Anaya, and to the point.
Good morning. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Anaya Flaren Iman and Patrick Christys on your TV, radio and online. We've got a great show lined up for the final hour, so here's what's on the menu.
Yeah, we're going to go live to Whitehall, where our reporter Ellie Costello has the latest on the government's response to P&O Ferries' decision to sack 800 staff. The company has been given a 5 p.m. deadline to respond to the government's concerns.
Yes, are the government doing enough to implement the lessons from the Grenfell Tower disaster? The Mayor of London says they aren't. We're joined by a campaigner from End Our Cladding Scandal to talk about this in more detail.
Now, the controversy around Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich has reopened questions about whether the government needs to take action and indeed a more active role in regulating our beautiful game. We're going to be joined by a guest who says they don't.
Yes, we have all of that coming up and much more across the programme, so make sure that you get in touch with your views as usual. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Turning to Ukraine now, and around 400,000 people are still trapped in the besieged city Mariupol, which has become a key flashpoint in the conflict.
And the UN estimates that nearly 4 million people have fled the country, with over 300,000 heading to Hungary. GB News reporter Rosie Wright sends us this report from a school in Zaghari in Hungary.
Some families here have been waiting 2 days to get this bus. It's going to Munich. And while they've been waiting, home has been this school. It's for Hungarian kids who are 14 and above, and it's been totally transformed over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, ever since the conflict began. All the students there, you can see some of them outside, have been doing online learning. Instead, the school's transformed 6 of their classrooms and the gymnasium into a place where people can sleep. Classrooms turned into kitchens. It means people here who fled from Ukraine, we're just about a kilometre actually in distance from the border from Ukraine and Hungary, the main train station. These people choosing not to get the train, instead to get the bus to Munich. Many people here never left Ukraine before. Some of them don't speak Hungarian, so they're trying to work out exactly, with the help of volunteers inside, what the next few steps will be. On this bus is 10 people from the same family. They left Mariupol and arrived 2 days ago, absolutely spitting with rage at Putin, completely unable to comprehend what's happened to their country, to their city, and now that as a family, this is the reality, this is the decision they're going to have to make to start a new life in Europe, and they're heading off to Germany.
Yeah, thank you, Rosie, there, giving us the kind of humanitarian angle on that ongoing Ukraine crisis. But a bit closer to home now, and last week, P&O Ferries sacked 800 staff without warning, effective immediately, in a move that's left the government angry and disappointed.
Yes, the Business Secretary has issued a request for more details surrounding the circumstances of the mass redundancies to establish whether any laws have been broken. According to the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union, the agency workers hired to replace P&O ferry crews in Dover are being paid £1.81 an hour.
Yeah, it's just an absolute disgrace, isn't it? The union said the low pay was a shocking exploitation and a betrayal of those who have been sacked, and one would have to raise some serious questions over the legality of it as well, wouldn't they? But anyway, our South East of England reporter Ellie Costello has much more on this and is actually outside the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy now. Thank you very much, Ellie. What's the latest then?
Hi, Patrick and Anaya. Well, this is day 6 of cancellations for P&O Ferries. It's reportedly costing them £1 million a day, and that's after the company sacked 800 workers over Zoom last Thursday, can you believe, to record a 2-minute pre-recorded message, and it's believed that that's because they want to invest in cheaper agency staff rather than British seafarers. Well, protests took place in Westminster yesterday, and let me tell you, feelings are still very high between the sacked unionists and the sacked sea workers as well. But today is deadline day, Patrick and Anaya. This is when Kwasi Kwarteng, the business secretary, gave the deadline for P&O to come back to him on the questions he asked in that letter on Friday. He actually wrote to the CEO of P&O Ferries on Friday, a very strongly worded letter. In it, he outlined the government's anger and disappointment over the way that the company had handled the redundancies. And very interesting, he does make a point in his letter about P&O Ferries claiming furlough payment. He says that it's particularly depressing, given the millions of pounds that British taxpayers have used to support P&O through schemes like the furlough scheme, that it couldn't feel closely enough tied to the UK to let the taxpayer or the British workers know. He then went on to ask the CEO of P&O Ferries 10 questions. In them, he's asking things like the exact number of staff that have been fired, whether any consultation was carried out at all, what options had been considered before deciding on this course of action, and then why those courses of action had been rejected, and also whether they have plans to do this to any more UK-based staff. They wanted to make sure that no other similar action was being considered. And in that letter on Friday, Kwasi Kwarteng asked for answers on his desk by 5 p.m. today, the 22nd of March. So, Patrick and I, the clock is very much ticking on that deadline.
Thank you very much, Ellie. It's obviously a rolling story and one that's going to, well, I don't know, in a way anyway, comes to some form of next step at about 5 p.m. this evening. Ellie Costello there, thank you very much.
And I think that, you know, as we find out more, this may well raise implications more broadly. I mean, there's been discussions about whether or not it should be illegal to fire and rehire, which is this idea that, you know, companies can't afford the salary of certain staff, so they fire them and then they put the job offer to them again at a lower salary, for example, and things like that. So I think this may well raise some big questions about workers' rights and the treatment of staff more broadly.
I think it's an interesting point there that was raised by Ellie kind of on behalf of Kwasi Kwarteng. Just saying that actually the P&O company didn't feel any loyalty to the UK, it would seem, or its workers, despite the fact that the taxpayer had forked out a heck of a lot of money for it during the pandemic. And it is that kind of additional thing of there's zero loyalty in business, it would seem, as well. You know, the spreadsheets don't have any loyalty to them, do they? They just decided that they were going to go ahead and do it anyway.
I mean, this was hopefully meant to be part of what Brexit was about, this sense that actually supporting local industries, actually cultivating that sense of loyalty and responsibility to British workers and British citizens here on the part of companies and organisations more broadly. So I think that this should be part of the levelling up consideration by the government, how we actually rebuild those relationships between the country and some of these companies that are, you know, profiting from the country.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And get your views coming in on that, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Let's see what you have to say when it comes to P&O and, of course, where you stand on that. And we want to know as well, of course, as well on that Twitter poll that we're doing at GB News on our Twitter page, do you care about Partygate? Because, as we touched on right at the start of the show, basically it's emerged that the Partygate investigation has been expanded. It's going to include around 100 people. It's almost doubled now that they're going to actually be looking into over this. Of course, many people were saying, absolutely, you know, this needs to come to a conclusion. We cannot have it unresolved as to whether or not members of our government broke the laws that they set and the rules that they set. But at the same time, we have got a war on. The police have got its issues as well. They've got a recruitment crisis, massive levels of youth death on the streets of London, and, of course, violence against women and girls, and indeed a lot of allegations coming from within the police as well.
One thing that I will agree with you on this, though, is that I wonder, when are we going to be taking violent crime seriously? Yeah. I mean, Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, has been the Home Secretary for several years now. On pretty much every single metric, it does seem to have been, you know, quite a catastrophic failure, to say the least, when it comes to the Channel and crime and so on. And when is the deaths of young people, but also, you know, sexual exploitation that's been going on across different regions in the country going to be taken seriously? And I think it is a huge indictment that we have failed to actually tackle this properly. Yeah, I agree. And of course, today is the tragic 5-year anniversary of the death of PC Keith Palmer, and I believe the 5 others as well who were killed during the Westminster Bridge terror attack by depraved jihadi Khalid Massoud. When are we going to start taking terror more seriously as well? You know, this is yet another issue that the police have got to get their heads around. I think for me, it's not... Well, it is so much about tackling those kind of crimes, don't get me wrong, but at the moment, if this report is particularly damning, if it turns out, look, we're dealing in hypotheticals here, but if it turns out that, you know, the Prime Minister really has broken the law or something like that, you know, presumably he probably would have to go. Can we have that right now at this moment in time? Like I've said, there is a war on, and is it actually sensible to do that? No, I think that is a very legitimate question, but, you know, we do know that actually in the next couple of months there will be an election in France.
Yeah,
and there's also an
that's
election
true.
coming up in Hungary in a matter of weeks, you know, against Viktor Orban. So it is just a reality that the democratic process will continue to go on, regardless of international events.
No, it will. And like I said, do make sure that you take part in that poll for us. And it is, of course, on @GBNews on Twitter. And that is whether or not you still care about Partygate. We want to hear from you on that and get in touch with your views as well, of course, GBviews at gbnews.uk.
Yes, well, after the break, have we learnt the lessons of Grenfell? We're joined by a campaigner from End Our Cladding Scandal to discuss this further just after the break and the weather.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Today is simply sunny and warm for the vast majority, but the odd shower is possible in one or two spots. High pressure still to the east of the UK, blocking weather systems from moving in from the Atlantic, maintaining a warm southerly airflow and a dry airflow as well, hence the largely cloud-free skies, but there are areas of cloud drifting north, and those areas of predominantly medium-level cloud could spark the odd shower, perhaps across the Midlands into the afternoon, or northern England, southern Scotland. But really, you'd be unlucky to be caught in a shower, because for the vast majority it's dry and it's sunny and it's warm. 15 to 18 Celsius widely across the UK, 19 or 20 degrees somewhere like London, Cambridge, Manchester or North Wales. Into the evening, and you can see some cloud there drifting north across the Midlands and northern England, and again a chance of a shower out of that cloud, but really that's the exception. For the vast majority it's just a clear night, and under those clear spells, temperatures in towns and cities dipping to 2 to 5 Celsius, and in the countryside just a little below freezing, so a touch of frost first thing, and a few fog patches possible into east and northeast England. Those are the most likely places, but the fog will lift quickly by 9 or 10 a.m. Fog free and sunny once again. One or two showers again possible for the northern Scotland, perhaps eastern England, but for the vast majority it's just another sunny day and feeling warm once again. Temperatures very similar to Tuesday, with highs of 17 to 19 Celsius fairly widely from Scotland down through England and Wales. Now into Wednesday evening, we're going to see the cloud-free skies continue, and that will lead on to another sunny day countrywide on Thursday. I think on Friday there'll be a bit more cloud in the far north and northwest, but sunshine returns on Saturday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis and live debate that you need to hear.
quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that has been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here. Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question.
Don't miss it, Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
Yes, it's 11:21. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys, and Anaya Falariman on GB News, live on your TV, online and radio this morning.
Yes, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has criticised the government for failing, in his words, to complete any of the 12 recommendations put forward following phase 1 of the Grenfell inquiry. 72 people died during the fire that engulfed West London tower block in June 2017, leading to social activists and local residents pushing for changes to cladding and building standards.
Yeah, well, speaking on Sunday, Sadiq Khan said that the London Fire Brigade have made significant changes in response to the inquiry, but it was vital that the government acted now before another crisis occurs. And Paul Afshar is a campaigner with End Our Cladding Scandal, and he joins us now. Thank you very, very much, Paul. So, look, what do you make of all this then? Where are you on these latest developments?
Well, look, it sort of beggars belief, doesn't it, that quite a few years after the horrific tragedy that happened in Grenfell, we're still talking about implementing some really necessary recommendations just to make buildings safe. Let me give you a sort of a good example of what some of those recommendations actually are. So we're talking about having regular inspections of lifts, of fire escapes, having the right amount of staircases and sky rises. And it would appear that the government, at all levels hasn't been able to implement any of those. Just last month, there was a very, very sort of worrying case of an incredibly high-rise building in Canary Wharf, which is south of my flat, which is another clad flat. So Canary Wharf, that was incredibly high with one staircase for well over 30 or 40 floors. So, this is not just a question of, regulations changing and, us all feeling a bit, better. It's actually sort of practical stuff that could really help improve building and fire safety, particularly in high rises. And to be quite frank, it's really sort of tragic that we're still having to talk about it so many years after.
Yeah, there's the obvious risk to human life, of course there is, but there's also just the kind of financial practicalities of it. I didn't quite catch exactly which kind of cladding you said your flat had on it there, but I'm assuming you can't really sell that with that on it, can you?
Not at all, not at all. So I have, for the last 18 months, been lumbered with a flat that is effectively worth zero because no mortgage company will offer a mortgage on it, and where the cladding still remains as well. Now, a good thing has happened in the past 6 months in the sense that the government has moved to say that, in principle, I shouldn't have to pay for the removal of this cladding. And I should clarify, it's not the cladding that was on Grenfell, but it is timber cladding, so it's very flammable. I won't have to pay for it. But of course, nothing else has really sort of moved. It's still on the flat, it's still unsellable, and it's still practically dangerous if a fire were to break out. We just need real action, and we need real action from all levels of government to be able to make sure that hundreds of thousands of, homeowners, flat holders like myself can actually move on with their lives.
Yeah, you said there, though, hundreds of thousands of flat owners, homeowners who've got this cladding around them there. Any idea about how much it might cost to actually strip that all off?
Well, Parliament has talked about a figure of £15 billion, and that's just for external cladding. of course, the true cost is so much higher because it's not just what's on the outside of the building, it's also stuff on the inside, like cavity breaks and fire installation systems as well. So the true cost is of course, going to be in the tens of billions. What the government has proposed is to meet a good proportion of that 15 billion cost through some money that they themselves have put up and through recouping costs from developers who, of course, are responsible in the first place. The trick, I'm afraid, however, is that Michael Gove is going to have to really twist a lot of arms of these developers to actually get them to cough up. He said that they should have to pay. They said that they shouldn't. So people like me are sort of stuck in limbo at the moment.
Yeah, and can I ask, is this just a UK problem? Because I've always wondered this, what happened at Grenfell was one of the desperate tragedies of modern times, certainly, and I can remember exactly where I was. In fact, I was living around the corner, actually, when it happened. And I just wondered, is it only us in this country who's using this kind of cladding? Is it all over Europe? Is it all over the world? Are there potentially millions of people sitting in what could be a tinderbox?
You're quite right that it's not just us that are suffering this issue. In fact, the other part of the Grenfell tragedy is that we knew something like this, or we potentially knew something like this would happen long before it did, because there were cases, very similar cases, of buildings in the Middle East, high-rise buildings that were clad with the same material that actually caught on fire and caused a horrendous loss of life as well. So there are still buildings in other countries that have this dangerous cladding on them. Kingspan, the maker of the cladding that was on Grenfell, is still in operation and is still selling their cladding. So, fortunately in the UK, we're able to exercise a level of transparency and visibility over that. But who knows? Who knows how deep this problem goes globally? And that's a really worrying thing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. Paul Afshar there is campaigner with End Our Cladding Scandal, and good luck to you as well, and obviously stay safe to you and everybody else in your accommodation there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes. I mean, it's really, really scary. I mean, I can't actually imagine what it would be like to live in one of those buildings, knowing that the cladding there may well be dangerous and incredibly unsafe. And I think the government were originally very, very slow on this, wanting to meet the costs on ordinary people, and thankfully, due to pressure, rightfully so, they have moved and are now subsidising and paying a long way to a lot of these costs. And I think that a lot of people were worried, and expressed concern after the horrendous Grenfell tragedy that there was a class element involved when it came to the response and the speed of the response on the part of the government. And I hope that is not the case. I hope. But you don't know.
No, we don't. Now, I'm just going to go into the inbox again, gbviews@gbnews.uk, and Paul has been in touch. And this is in relation to the P&O story. So if you are just joining us, 5 p.m. is the deadline for P&O to essentially answer a load of questions from Kwasi Kwarteng and other government ministers as well on exactly why they decided to fire around 800 staff and exactly the motives behind it, etc., etc. Now, as a British seafarer of 30 years, Paul says, I have to say this situation is unfortunately par for the course. What is shocking is that most other developed countries have legislation in place that stipulates any vessel operating in sovereign waters must be crewed by their own nationals. This ties into what you were saying before, Inaya. We now, in Brexit Britain, have an ideal opportunity to secure British jobs and our proud maritime history for the future by introducing the same legislation. Paul, that's a cracking email, that. I know you touched on what you were saying, isn't it?
No, exactly. Interestingly, another perspective, Ian Ross says the P&O vessels are flagged in Cyprus. The ships can be crewed in accordance with Cyprus maritime laws. They do not need to use British mariners. This is what happens if you let foreign-flagged vessels trade in UK domestic sea routes.
It's an opportunity, isn't it, now, for Brexit Britain, surely, to have a...
But this has always been the question. I mean, when are we really
going to...
Well, exactly. Are we going to harness this Brexit Britain? I mean, but this, I think, for me, even back then, was always the contradiction of Brexit. You had the aspiration and clearly the democratic will of the people, but we were lumped with political leaders and political elites that some might say lack vision, lack political will. Some might even say it's slightly cowardly when it comes to taking big risks in terms of transforming the British state. And so we are left with all these opportunities, but not actually the harnessing of them. So
yeah,
we have to hold their feet to the fire.
Maybe this will shine a light on it and kickstart something. You never know.
We can only dream.
Yes, exactly. A lot of people still getting in touch about our real-life Willy Wonka that we had on the show earlier. He was fantastic value. What his company does is it goes around and plants prizes in various different brands' products, mostly food. And these prizes range from anything to £1 million to Aston Martins to just a few quid or a cruise.
But wouldn't mind £1 million.
Not on P&O, of course.
Wouldn't mind £1 million.
What do you think you'd do with it?
I would treat my family, donate a lot of it, invest it, you know.
Would you really?
Diversify, you know, you got to do in this day and age, you know, pandemic, all of these risks. What would you do?
I think I'd probably be found face down somewhere near my yacht in the Med within a week. But anyway, after the break, does the case of Roman Abramovich and the Chelsea ownership, of course, shine a light on whether or not the government needs to get more involved in regulating football? We'll be joined by a guest who says that they don't. But before that, let's have a look at this morning's news headline.
It's 11:31. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Ukraine's deputy prime minister is urging Russia to allow citizens to leave the besieged city of Mariupol, where hundreds of thousands are trapped with little food and water. He claims Russian forces are blocking humanitarian corridors and preventing supplies from reaching the city and that of Kherson. Russia denies it's targeting civilians. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has paid tribute to a 96-year-old Holocaust survivor killed by Russian shelling in the city of Kharkiv. Boris Romanchenko had survived several Nazi concentration camps during the Second World War. He was killed last week when a bomb hit the residential building he lived in. Ukraine's second-largest city has come under heavy fire since the start of Russia's invasion. A 22-year-old man has been charged with the murder of 19-year-old Sabita Tanwani. She was found dead at student accommodation in Clerkenwell in central London in the early hours of Saturday morning. He's expected to appear at Highbury Corner Magistrates Court later. A 17-month-old girl who died yesterday following a dog attack at her home in St Helens has been named by Merseyside Police as Bella Ray Birch. Neighbours in Blackbrook have spoken of their shock, calling her a beautiful little girl. The dog had only been with the family a week. It's since been put down and will be examined to determine whether or not it's an illegal breed. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. It's back to Patrick and Anaya and to the point in just a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning all, it's 11:35. This show's whizzed by so far. It's to the point with me, Patrick Christys, and Inaya Following-Man on GB News, live on your TV, online and radio this morning.
Yes, well, the war in Ukraine is putting pressure on UK farmers as food producers are facing surging prices for fertiliser. This comes as exports from the world's largest producer, Russia, are hit amid global sanctions, whilst much of the world's grain is also produced in Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, well, for more on this now is our reporter Amelia Harper, who visited a farm in Buckinghamshire earlier this morning.
Well, welcome to Ash Farm here in Buckinghamshire, and welcome to Richard Heddy. You are an arable farmer, and also, if I take a little step out of shot, you can see the lovely cows behind me, because you are also a beef farmer, or we've got one here coming up wanting to be centre stage. She's rather lovely, isn't she? But what we are here to talk about is the situation and the war in Ukraine, and how Putin's invasion of Ukraine is affecting UK food supplies. Now, there are two main problems, and we'll discuss this more in more detail in a second, but just to outline what's going on. Oh, hello again. We have problems with fuel and fertiliser, and secondly with grain. Now, Russia is the world's largest exporter of fertiliser. Russia has come under international sanctions, and therefore prices for fertiliser have skyrocketed as farmers look for other sources. And secondly, grain. Russia and Ukraine produce a huge amount of the world's wheat. They account for 30% of global wheat exports, and as a result, Ukrainian farmers are normally planting those crops for next year's harvest. However, men are taking up arms and fighting for their country, and therefore that is not happening. And as a result, it is having a knock-on effect on global food supplies. But here to tell us a little bit more, surrounded by your cows, Richard, tell me what is happening. Let's start with the fertiliser. Are you having to limit the amount of fertiliser that you use, perhaps to try to spare some for next year?
Yes, we're having to be really careful with it. You know, it's worth 3 times what it was last year. We're not sure we'll be able to get any more in, or when we will be able to. So we've just got to be really careful. But then again, we can't stinge on it. If we don't put enough on our crops, we won't get the yield, the quantity, and we won't get the quality. And we need the quality of wheat to produce bread-making wheat and feed the country. So it's really important we use it, but at the same time, we need to be very careful about how we do it.
And also, of course, we are surrounded here by cows. How do you decide whether to produce that to feed them or whether to produce it for bread?
It's always a difficult challenge. You've got to balance these things. The cattle can finish off grass alone, so I think we probably need to prioritise making bread this year, put the extra nitrogen on, get the quality, and just let the cattle have the grass, because we need to feed the world. And I think there's going to be a bit of a pinch this year. Ukrainian farmers aren't being able to get out into their fields to plant their crops. So where's that wheat going to come from? And we don't want people to go hungry. So, you know, as farmers, it is our job and our mission to feed the country, and that's what we're going to do.
And what happens next year if you can't then get hold of fertiliser?
Well, organic people are doing this, so we've got to try our best. It's a really hard job to do. We will get massive drops in yield, but, you know, we'll step up to the challenge and we'll try our best.
And what is the situation for wheat? Because you grow some wheat here. What's happening for you on that front?
So the wheat we harvested last year, we've still got in store, so that has doubled in value, and that's the highest prices we've ever seen for it. So we're quite lucky we held on to it until quite late. But we don't really want to profiteer from a terrible situation. But then again, our costs are skyrocketing, our ag chemicals, our fuel, our fertiliser. So I don't think we're going to have bigger margins because of this grain price. I think at the end of the day, everyone's going to be pinched, including us.
So you don't think that perhaps the increased prices that you might get for that wheat would somehow counteract the increased cost that you're seeing overall?
I think it'll help, but at the end of the day, you know, everything's rising in price. You know, as a customer, you can see in the shops, everything's rising. It's the same for us. Everything that we need to buy in to run our business is skyrocketing at the minute, and it's going to be a struggle to make things pay.
Well, thank you very much, Richard, for your time. It's been great to hear from you. So just to summarise, I think it is clear to see that Putin's invasion of Ukraine is going to continue to impact global food supply chains, whether that's through limited fertiliser supply or whether that's to do with Ukrainian farmers not being able to plant that wheat.
Yeah, there you go. Yet another unintended consequence or knock-on effect, I should really say, of what's been going on in Ukraine with Russia as well.
Well, I've been hearing that this could really harm the developing world. So, for example, in many countries, in Africa, for example, they get something like 60-70% of their wheat from Ukraine.
Yeah.
And so the sanctions are really going to bite some of those developing countries. And so hopefully the international community can find some way of mitigating against that.
Yeah, I know, indeed. I mean, it's gonna roll on right throughout the world, isn't it, as well? Yeah, lots of you have been getting in touch. Just going to do a few views now. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Partygate is still doing the rounds in the inbox because we've had this poll that's still running on Twitter. Almost 5,000 of you taken part in that now, and it's only got a few minutes left to get to at GB News on Twitter and take part in that. So far, 71% of you say that you stopped caring about Partygate. The reason why I raised it this morning was it emerged that the police are going to expand on that investigation. In a word, Patrick, no, I don't care. There are far more important issues that need urgent attention. The party should be dealt with through fines.
Yeah.
Not resignations.
Yeah, I think I've always thought the resignation might be a bit far, but I do think you have to ask whether or not, we can run a country where there is a moral vacuum at the heart of it. And that's what the other people would say, just putting the other side of the argument. But I do think that if we did drop Partygate, I think that the hardcore Remainers will not let that go.
No, I imagine not just, but they very rarely let anything go, don't they? But
haven't let Brexit go.
Yes, yes, indeed. And on the cladding issue, it's kicked off really. There's a range of views on this. Was it cladding legal when it was put on? And were the properties mortgageable when it was put on? If it was, why do they want it all done free, paid for by the taxpayer to have it taken off? Well, if it's not legal anymore, then I suppose that's why, and they can't sell it. So
that's a very good point.
That's one. Right, OK, it's been a turbulent year, or 2 years, I should say, really, for the Premier League and football owners as well, with the sanctions currently facing Chelsea. The Saudi royal family have bought up Newcastle, haven't they? And the European Super League threatening to destroy the entire footballing pyramid. And many fans and indeed owners have called for an independent regulator to try to monitor and stop football club owners from taking advantage of our national game, as well as protecting fan interest in the sport.
This is your subject.
OK.
How likely is this to go through, given the power that these foreign owners currently hold? Victoria Hewson is the head of regulatory affairs at the Institute for Economic Affairs, who believes that the current situation does not require an independent regulator. Thank you for joining us this morning. I mean, why doesn't it require independent regulator? We outlined in the introduction some of the ways in which it's, for example, harming the interests of fans. How do we prevent that from happening then?
Well, this all stems from the so-called fan-led review that was authored by the Conservative backbencher Tracy Crouch, and this was published last November. And they sort of made the case that the game is in crisis, the game is at a precipice, and needs some sort of rescue package from a state regulator because of a number of issues where they think basically, as you alluded to just there, owners are being irresponsible, they're loading up clubs with debt, a sort of asset stripping is going on, and fans' voices are not being heard. But really, that's a very unbalanced view of the way football works. Most fans love the game. The Premier League has more fans than ever, not just in Britain, but worldwide. It's fantastically successful. And if you were to say to fans, do you want a regulator to step in and stop the owner of your club from spending money on players' wages? Yeah. I suspect they might disagree with you. And I suspect in reality, and this is the case that we make in a report that we've published at the IAA this week, is that actually most fans' interests are better reflected and better aligned with the interests of private owners than they would be with a technocratic state regulator.
No, indeed, and I think that point has been evidenced quite directly by the fans of the banners of the Roman Empire that have been there at Stamford Bridge. I think Chelsea played against Newcastle quite recently, didn't they? I think it was last week, and you've got fans there at Newcastle wearing some, I think it's fair to say, quite dubious outfits in relation to their new Saudi owners, and the Chelsea fans singing Roman Abramovich's name left, right and centre. And actually, I think most fans at most football clubs just want to see success on the pitch. They don't want to see over-regulation, do they?
Well, Patrick, the less said about that Chelsea-Newcastle game, the better, as a Newcastle fan. But I do think the situation with the sanctions against Abramovich and the effect that that's had on Chelsea Football Club is a good reflection, actually, of how state regulatory interference in a football club will work out in practice. And far from the government stepping in to run the club, creating sustainability, it's actually created a lot of acrimony and a lot of uncertainty. And it really does show that the heavy hand of the state doesn't necessarily work very well in private, grassroots, sort of civil society regulated spheres like sports generally, and in particular in football.
I mean, I'm inclined to believe what you're saying, even though I support Manchester United, and the Glazers there have obviously pumped a huge amount of money into the club, but now managed to fall behind Manchester City and not actually kind of directly seeing the benefit of that. But at a more local level, actually, Bury FC, Steve Dale was a wealthy owner, or at least allegedly a wealthy owner. Now, at the lower levels, when it comes to football clubs, they can be the kind of beating heart of that local community, can't they, that town? And of course, that was bad ownership. The club went into administration and it sucked the life out of it. In fact, it really ruined it, didn't it? And you could argue maybe that a regulator is more important towards the lower end of the footballing pyramid, do you think, or not?
Well, actually, Patrick, I think it's quite the reverse. The costs of regulation on the smaller clubs, which, let's face it, outside of the top six, most football clubs in all of the leagues are basically SMEs, and certainly down at the level of Bury are run by local business people and a lot of volunteers. And the idea of regulating them as if they were a listed company doing financial reporting and applying for licenses is really very onerous indeed. And actually, Bury, the situation there with Bury was one of the underlying reasons that the review was set up, and it's one of the so-called crises that Tracy Crouch praised in aid of her regulatory solution. But what's really interesting is that Bury Football Club reformed by local fans in the local community. And yes, certainly they've had to work their way up again right from the very bottom. But this actually is a demonstration that grassroots fan-led approaches can still work. And there's been a handful of other similar examples. Salford City and AFC Wimbledon have all been grassroots fan-led vehicles to refresh local clubs and bring them back again. Bury's doing quite well. It's working its way up the leagues. It's in talks to move back to its old ground. So really, this is very much the regulatory idea is a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah, OK. I mean, I suppose there is the example of Salford, isn't there? Another club. We all seem to be focused around the Manchester-ish area here. But Salford, of course, Gary Neville is one of the owners there. He's called for a regulator, although I suppose he is a rampant lefty and therefore wants the government involved in everything.
Well, indeed. And, I think people need to be very careful what they wish for. Some would argue that some of the business people involved with Gary Neville and at Salford are not exactly, pillars of the local community. So there are some questions about where his interests really lie here. But also, does the idea of having football run by a body like the Financial Conduct Authority that regulates the banks, which Tracy Crouch specifically uses as the model that she wants to apply for football, would anyone really say that they think financial services and banking is a really vibrant community-led industry where the interests of consumers are well reflected and people really love interacting with their bank? I'm not sure that's a really great model that translates across to football very well.
No, that's right. Well, look, Victoria, thank you very much. What was the name of that report again, if people are listening to this now or watching this indeed, whether it's online or on their TV or indeed on the new radio that we've got at the moment? How can they access your report?
It's called Red Card and it's available on the IU website.
Thank you very much. All right, yeah. Victoria Hewson there, Head of Regulatory Affairs, the Institute for Economic Affairs. There we go.
Well, although I didn't contribute that much to that discussion...
You were absorbing.
Yes, I was taking it all in. I mean, I have got much more interested in sport over the last year since being part of GBNews, because I do think that sport and politics do connect together. I mean, with the European Super League, for example, I think that was very interesting to see that a kind of fan-led revolt against a kind of corporate way in which it was all coming together against the fans. I think obviously the whole taking of the knee discussion has been very interesting. Some of the discussion around mental health, Naomi Osaka, people pulling out, but still being awarded and so on. I think that the politics of sport, to me, has been quite fascinating.
It has actually been quite fascinating. People say, keep politics out of sport.
Azim Rafiq, that whole situation
yes,
as well.
Yeah, indeed, indeed.
Very political.
Now, we yesterday, of course, just after our show, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe spoke for the first time since she arrived back in the UK after a harrowing 6 years in an Iranian prison. I believe we might be able to take a quick look at some of the things that she actually had to say, and then we're going to have a quick chat about it, because there's a lot to get stuck into here. We were talking just before we came on air, actually, about whether or not, well, not that we agree, but the fact that a lot of people online are saying, no, she seems a bit ungrateful because she's refusing to thank various foreign secretaries who've got her out of it. We'll talk about that after that, but take a quick look at this first, yeah?
Is it a little worrying that the government has been seen to pay Iran in exchange for people being returned to the United Kingdom?
I'm going to jump in on that, Tom. There is a moral hazard, without doubt. A legal debt is not a ransom, but the guys that took Nazanin will be patting themselves on the back and saying, we did well, let's, squeeze Roxanne's dad. It is a challenge for the government, for the international community generally, to deal with state hostage-taking. That can't be done just with carrots. It can't. It's a balance, and it needs to be worked out, and the government needs to be brave. And being brave also means being tough. I think it's worthwhile having that conversation in a brave and open and honest way, and we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah, well, that was our very own Tom Harwood there asking that question. Obviously, Richard dived in relatively quickly before Nazanin could answer. But anyway, there was a lot of stuff to get stuck into yesterday. One of the biggest ones in Ireland was this business where, I suppose she didn't thank, did she? Or didn't appear to be particularly grateful towards any of the foreign secretaries, because she said, how many foreign secretaries will it take to get us out? Now, there was a lot of anger online about this.
Yeah.
You don't share that anger, do you?
No, I don't. I think that was an entirely legitimate point on her part. I think that she has been... I think we need to really realise what has happened to her. She's been effectively in prison for 6 years, terrifying alone, perhaps not even knowing when she's going to come out, broken promises in what is effectively quite a hostile, despotic country. And I think that she'll have a whole mix of emotions. Undoubtedly, she will be so grateful to see her family, but she didn't see her toddler, for years. And so there's going to be anger, there's going to be a bit of resentment there, there's going to be, happiness and joy and gratitude. But I do think that, she can ask those really tough questions as to why it did take so long when eventually they paid this apparently legal debt. Well, why didn't they do that 6 years ago?
Well, that's kind of what Jeremy Hunt's alluding to, because he's tweeted about 3 or 4 hours ago just to say, she doesn't owe us gratitude, we owe her an explanation.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But what's the other side, do you think?
Look, the other side to it is there are a lot of people out there now on Twitter saying, on various places, I suppose, saying, look, hang on a minute, we paid the taxpayer paid 400 million quid to get you released and this, that and the other, but I think that's... I can't get my head around what it must have felt like to have been stuck in an Iranian prison. I think some of it was house arrest, to be fair, but we're splitting hairs at this point, aren't we?
Yeah.
For 6 years, you've got a child there who you're missing growing up, a husband there who is, you're not allowed to be with, a family torn apart, and the fear. And I do think as well, being a woman in an Iranian jail, there's some obvious potential hazards there, and...
And I think we have to remember we're only getting, fragments of the story.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a danger with a kind of online conversation reacting to segments and fragments that they might see, which isn't really the full story.
I know view may change. This is still very, very, very raw. Look, I've got to be honest with you, I can't sit here and promise I wouldn't be absolutely fuming at the idea of being fundamentally let down by my country. That view may change in a couple of weeks' time once the dust has settled. But anyway, there we go. Right, well, let's just take you through to finish off with some of the headlines that you might have missed.
Yes, Britain is in for an early spring heatwave this week as temperatures are expected to soar to as high as 20 degrees Celsius in parts of the country. Is that hot?
Is it? It's not that hot.
Yeah. I was in Spain a couple of years ago and it was 40 degrees.
Well, there you go. When I was in the Maldives, it was about 40 degrees. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Tell you what, the sweat I worked up on the way to that free bar.
But you know what Brits are like? As soon as there's a little bit of sun, the kit gets off.
Yeah, it does actually, with disastrous consequence. Anyway, those living in the south of England can expect to see the warmest weather, with Londoners and Cambridgeshire residents best positioned.
Yes, and now for some good news. Pubs in England and Wales will be given a 2-hour licence extension to serve drinks until 1 a.m. during the 3-day celebration for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
Buck it off now, people. Buck it off now.
Oh, I mean, it's great because, I mean, during the pandemic, so many of them were closing at, like, 7 or...
Oh, yeah, ridiculous.
It was crazy. So.
Which is actually worse, because then you'd end up with these massive crowds of people in places like Leicester Square around London, I'm sure in various city centres as well, just spreading COVID like wildfire in a way that we wouldn't have continued to do, in my opinion, if we'd have been allowed to drink all day. Anyway, 11 p.m. cut-off, of course, applies to 2nd, the 3rd and the 4th of June, as the Queen marks 70 years on the throne. National occasions in the past have pushed back pub closing times, including the royal weddings in 2011 and 2018, and the World Cup in 2014, but there you go.
Well, that's great news.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Go out there and really celebrate the Queen with, a Pimm's or, 57 gin and tonics.
Yes.
Yeah, a pint of Spitfire, something like that. But there we go. Well, we're going to have one last look at the Twitter poll now, ladies and gents. And yes, we have now managed to top that 5,000 of you. Thank you very much for everyone who got in touch. Do you still care about Partygate? In light of the Met turning out, they still do care about Partygate. 73% of you say no. But that is it from us. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, and Mercy Muroki will be back in this seat tomorrow. And I'll be back on Friday.
You'll be back on Friday, yes you will. Right, now that's it from us here at To The Point, but don't go away, because up next, it's The Briefing with Gloria De Piero. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Today is simply sunny and warm for the vast majority, but the odd shower is possible in 1 or 2 spots. High pressure still to the east of the UK, blocking weather systems from moving in from the Atlantic, maintaining a warm southerly airflow and a dry airflow as well, hence the largely cloud-free skies, but there are areas of cloud drifting north, and those areas of predominantly medium-level cloud could spark the odd shower, perhaps across the Midlands into the afternoon, or northern England, southern Scotland. But really, you'd be unlucky to be caught in a shower, because for the vast majority it's dry and it's sunny and it's warm. 15 to 18 Celsius widely across the UK, 19 or 20 degrees somewhere like London, Cambridge, Manchester or North Wales. Into the evening, and you can see some cloud there drifting north across the Midlands and northern England, and again, a chance of a shower out of that cloud. But really, that's the exception. For the vast majority, it's just a clear night. And under those clear spells, temperatures in towns and cities dipping to 2 to 5 Celsius, and in the countryside are just a little below freezing. So a touch of frost first thing, and a few fog patches possible into